Like and subscribe if you want to learn about the truly weird side of history, because who doesn't want to hear about bizarre punishments, shocking myths, and the grotesque practices of our ancestors? Trust me, you won't want to snooze on this one. Imagine this: it's 1530, and you've just been caught stealing. What's your punishment? A nice long stay in a dungeon? Nope. How about being placed in a giant iron cage and left to dangle in public view? Sounds like a fun day out, right? Or how about the medieval practice of trial by ordeal, where your fate is decided by whether or not you can pull your hand out of a pot of boiling water without getting burned? And let's not forget the sexual curiosities of ancient Rome, where public orgies were the norm and your social status depended on how many partners you could boast about. You thought dating apps were complicated? Try navigating that mess. Ever heard of the dancing plague of 1518? People literally danced themselves to death. Talk about a party gone wrong. Or consider the bizarre belief that a witch could cast a spell just by looking at you. How's that for a first date? So, are you ready for jaw-dropping tales of history that'll make you question everything you thought you knew? We promise to deliver bizarre facts, specific dates, and so many oddities that you'll wonder how humanity survived at all. Hit that loop button so this wild ride can repeat until you fall asleep, or until you're too shocked to close your eyes. Buckle up, it's going to be a strange journey through the ages. In the glorious, muddy world of medieval Europe, where knights donned their armor and jousted for honor, one might assume that the most pressing concerns of the age revolved around dragon slaying and the occasional skirmish over land. Yet, lurking beneath the polished sheen of chivalry was a topic so absurdly specific, it could only be described as the drab history of medieval night shoe shine frequency regulations. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the medieval world had rules not just for how to wield a sword but also for how often one's footwear should be polished. Let us embark on this whimsical journey through time, starting from the earliest records. ### the early regulations, circa 1200. In the quaint town of Runcorn, England, the year 1200 marked the first documented reference to shoe shine frequency, an unusual moment, to be sure. A local bard, one Geoffrey of Glimmering, penned a ballad titled Ode to the Shiny Boot, lamenting the state of neglect amongst the knights. It was here that the legendary decree emerged, requiring all knights to polish their boots at least once every fortnight. Why once every fortnight, you ask? Was it to ensure a glimmering appearance? Or perhaps to prevent the growth of medieval fungus? Regardless, the regulation was met with a fair amount of eye-rolling. After all, which knight had the time to polish boots when there were dragons to slay and fair maidens to rescue? ### the reign of Edward I, 1272 to 1307. Fast forward to 1275, during the reign of Edward I, when the regulations took a delightful turn. Edward, known for his keen interest in order, and his love for alliteration, issued the Shoe Shine Statute of 1275. This law mandated that knights were to shine their boots a minimum of thrice a week. Yes, you heard that correctly, 3 times a week. Can you imagine the uproar? What's next? They grumbled. A decree on how to comb our mustaches. The statute was enforced with such vigor that local lords appointed shoe squires, young lads tasked solely with ensuring the boots of their masters sparkled like the morning dew. Imagine that, young boys running around with rags and polish, while their lords engaged in grand battles. Just how effective could a 12-year-old be in the heat of battle, you ponder. Hashtag the Great Shoe Shine Scandal of 1303. Now, let's not forget the Great Shoe Shine Scandal of 1303, which rocked the very foundations of chivalric society. Sir Reginald of Spindlewood, a knight with a passion for rustic footwear, was caught red-handed. His boots were woefully unpolished. The ramifications were monumental. A town crier proclaimed, "Hark! Sir Reginald hath defied the decree. His boots are a disgrace to our fair land." What followed was an absurd trial, where Sir Reginald defended himself by claiming he had lost track of time while rescuing a damsel in distress. The court, however, was unswayed. They fined him 20 shillings and mandated that he spend a fortnight polishing boots in the town square, much to the delight of the townsfolk, who lined up to gawk at the disgraced knight. One can only imagine the snickers as they shouted, "What a soul-less knight!" Hashtag the French influence, circa 1350. As the years rolled on, the French, always on the lookout to add a touch of flair, decided to jump on the shoe shine bandwagon in the mid-14th century. In a rather bizarre twist, King John II of France, who had more than a few fashion faux pas himself, decreed in 1351 that knights must not only shine their boots but also decorate them with colorful embellishments. Knights of the realm were now required to polish their boots every other day and affix a plume, feather, or even a tiny jester hat for extra flair. Can you picture it? A battalion of knights, ready for battle, but first, they had to don their stylishly polished boots adorned with peacock feathers. Did the enemy tremble at the sight? Or did they simply burst into laughter? One could only hope it was the former, as these knights galloped into battle looking like a medieval version of a circus act. Hashtag the Renaissance of Regulations, 1400s. By the 1400s, the shoe shine regulations evolved yet again, as the Italian city-states entered the fray. Venice, known for its opulence, took it upon themselves to establish the Venetian Footwear Ordinance of 1445, which mandated that knights must have their boots polished daily, lest they suffer the shame of being labeled unrefined. And thus, the shoe shine industry was born. Enterprising young men set up stalls across the city, charging anywhere from a mere penny to a whopping 3 pence for a shine, depending on the level of embellishment requested. It was a veritable gold mine. And who could resist the temptation? Knights would parade through the streets, boots gleaming, while the townsfolk chanted, "Shine bright like a diamond, shine bright like a knight." Hashtag the absurd practices of the 1450s. As we approach the mid-15th century, we encounter some truly peculiar practices. In 1457, the infamous Sir Hubert of Tattershall introduced the Polish perk, an incentive for knights who kept their boots in immaculate condition. Those who polished their boots 5 times a week were granted a special title, the Gleaming Guardian. However, this title came with its own set of absurdities. Gleaming Guardians were required to attend weekly gatherings, where they would engage in a bizarre ritual involving boot polishing competitions. Knights would strut their stuff, boot first, showcasing their shiny footwear to the crowd. The grand prize? A golden boot horn, an object so utterly useless but so sought after that one could only wonder how it survived the ages. ##### The fall of the regulations, 1500s. As we drift into the 1500s, the shoe shine regulations began to wane. With the rise of the Renaissance and a shift in focus toward art, science, and, dare I say, hygiene, the regulations became less about shines and more about comfort. The advent of the slipper made its way into the knight's wardrobe, and suddenly, the need for boot polishing diminished. Who has time to shine when one is enraptured by the works of Da Vinci and Michelangelo? By 1550, the shoe shine statute was largely ignored, and knights were more concerned with their ruffled collars than the shine on their boots. The last recorded shoe shine frequency regulation was repealed in 1580, officially marking the end of an era. ####conclusion, a legacy of absurdity. So, there you have it, a whimsical romp through the absurd history of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations. Who would have thought that knights, those valiant warriors, would have to navigate the treacherous waters of boot polishing? As we reflect on this bizarre chapter of history, one must ask, were these regulations merely a reflection of the times, or did they serve a greater purpose? Perhaps they were designed to keep knights grounded, reminding them that even the mightiest among us must occasionally kneel to polish our shoes. In the end, the legacy of these regulations lives on, not just in the annals of history but in the very fabric of our modern obsession with appearances. So the next time you lace up your shoes, spare a thought for the knights of yore, who navigated battlefields while battling the tyranny of boot polish, and remember, it's not just about the shine, it's about the stories we leave behind. The drab history of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations. In the dusty annals of medieval history, where chivalry reigned supreme and quests for glory were the order of the day, one might overlook an unsung hero of knightly endeavors, the humble shoe shine. Yes, amidst the clangor of swords and the gallop of steeds, there existed a rigorous system governing how often knights were required to polish their armor-adjacent footwear. This narrative, though drab at first glance, reveals a rich tapestry of construction methods, bureaucratic regulation, and the unsung roles of those tasked with maintaining the luster of knightly boots. #### Construction methods and materials. 1. The boot basics, 12th century, ****. Knights' boots were not merely practical, they were a statement of status. Constructed primarily from leather, these boots were often reinforced with metal plates to withstand the rigors of battle and the occasional accidental kick from a horse. The leather was typically sourced from local tanneries, where the tanning process could take weeks, involving animal hides soaked in a brew of tree bark and urine, the medieval equivalent of a spa day gone wrong. 2. Shine materials ****. To keep their boots sparkling, knights relied on a concoction of natural materials. The most common ingredients for the polish included beeswax, animal fat, and various tree resins. Each knight had a specific blend that not only protected the leather but also made their boots the envy of every squire. The average cost of a quality polish was about 1 groat, which, in the grand scheme of things, was a small price to pay to avoid being outshone by a rival. ### Bureaucratic rules and punishments. 1. The Edict of Shine, 1234, ****. In 1234, the Council of Knights issued the Edict of Shine, formalizing the frequency with which knights were required to polish their boots. Under this edict, a knight was to shine his boots at least twice a week, once for the Sunday Mass and once before any tournament. Failure to comply could result in a variety of punishments, ranging from a public scolding to the removal of one's coat of arms. 2. The consequences of neglect ****. A knight caught neglecting his footwear faced the wrath of the local baron. The punishments were as creative as they were severe. First offense ***, a fine of 3 groats and mandatory attendance at the next shoe-shining workshop. Second offense ***, public humiliation, where the knight would have to walk barefoot through the village square while reciting the Ode to Polished Boots. Third offense ***, banishment from tournaments until the knight could prove his dedication to boot maintenance through a rigorous boot shining exam. Yes, that's right, an exam for shining boots. #### Roles and job descriptions. 1. The knight, 12th to 14th century, ****. The knight himself was responsible for the upkeep of his own boots, which created a curious dichotomy. On one hand, knights were trained in the art of war, on the other, they were expected to be skilled boot polishers. This duality often led to them being late for battle, muttering about the importance of appearance while their squires rolled their eyes. 2. The squire, 11th to 15th century, ****. Typically, a knight squire was tasked with the less glamorous aspects of boot maintenance. While the knight donned his armor and prepared for glory, the squire was often found on his knees, laboriously polishing the boots to a mirror finish. The squire's job description included daily inspections of the knight's boots, crafting a personal blend of polish, ensuring that the knight's boots were ready for both battle and ballroom. 3. The boot shiner, 13th century, ****. As the demand for shiny boots grew, so did the profession of the boot shiner. These individuals were often itinerant tradesmen who would travel from castle to castle, offering their services for a nominal fee. Their job description included providing on-the-spot boot polishing services, educating knights and squires on the proper techniques of shine application, carrying an assortment of polishes, brushes, and rags, a veritable mobile boot spa. #### Technical specs and inventories. 1. Boot specifications ****. Knights' boots typically measured about 18 inches in height, with reinforced toe caps and a thick sole meant to withstand the rigors of the battlefield. The average knight owned 3 pairs, each with distinct purposes. Battle boots * sturdy, reinforced, and often caked with mud. Ceremonial boots * polished to a high shine, worn during tournaments and royal events. Casual boots * for everyday wear around the castle or village. 2. Inventory of shine supplies ***. A knight's boot shining kit often included a variety of tools and materials, such as Polish jars * containing various blends of beeswax and fat. Buffing cloths * made from the finest linen, often stolen from the castle laundry. Boot brushes * crafted from horsehair, used for applying and buffing the polish. Water jug * for diluting the polish, because a knight's boot should not just gleam but also withstand the elements. ### The rise of regulations. 1. The Golden Age of Shine, 1250 to 1300, ***. As the popularity of knightly tournaments soared in the late 13th century, so did the regulations surrounding boot maintenance. The Council of Knights convened every 5 years to review the policies, leading to an era often referred to as the Golden Age of Shine. During this time, a robust bureaucracy sprang up, complete with inspectors who traveled the countryside to ensure compliance. 2. The Inspectors of Shine ***. These inspectors, often former knights themselves, were tasked with ensuring that every knight adhered to the Edict of Shine. They wielded a shoe shine scepter, a rather ornate, albeit impractical, tool, to measure the shininess of boots. Upon inspection, any knight failing the luster test faced immediate penalties. ###. A legacy of shine. The legacy of boot shine regulations extended beyond the knightly class. It seeped into the fabric of medieval society. By the 14th century, even commoners began to adopt similar shining practices, albeit with less stringent regulations. Town criers would announce the "Shine of the Week," where the best shined boots in the village would receive a small prize, perhaps a loaf of bread or a pint of ale. ###. Conclusion: the unsung importance of shine. While the sword may be mightier than the pen, one could argue that the polished boot is mightier than both. The rigorous regulations surrounding boot shining in the medieval era reveal much about societal values, where appearance was often deemed as important as valor. Knights fought for glory, squires buffed their boots for honor, and boot shiners made a living by ensuring that no heel went unpolished. In the end, perhaps we should all take a page from the medieval playbook. After all, a well-shined boot may not win a battle, but it can certainly win the admiration of peers, something every knight, and modern office worker, can appreciate. So, the next time you lace up your shoes, remember the long-forgotten battles of shine and the knights who fought them, one boot at a time. The Drab History of Medieval Knight Shoe Shine Frequency Regulations. In a world often romanticized as a chivalrous age of valor and gallantry, one might overlook the less glamorous aspects of medieval life, such as the strict regulations governing the frequency of shoe shining for knights. While tales of damsels in distress and epic battles capture our imaginations, the practicalities of knightly footwear shine a light on the bureaucracy and minutiae that defined the era. Construction methods and materials. Medieval footwear for knights was not just about style, it was a balance of function, durability, and the ability to withstand the rigors of battle. Most knightly shoes were constructed from a variety of leather types: cowhide for durability, calfskin for softness, and occasionally even more exotic materials like seal skin for the wealthy. Shoes were typically stitched together using a technique known as turn shoe, where the leather was turned inside out during construction, resulting in a durable and waterproof finish. The soles were often made from thick leather, sometimes reinforced with iron for added protection. The cost of these shoes varied significantly based on materials and craftsmanship. A standard pair of knightly shoes could cost anywhere from 2 to 5 shillings, a considerable sum when a skilled laborer earned about 1 shilling a week. Thus, the knight's shoe was not merely a fashion statement, it was an investment that required maintenance. Bureaucratic rules and punishments. In the 12th century, the burgeoning bureaucracy of feudal systems led to the establishment of regulations governing the maintenance of knightly footwear. The Footwear Ordinance of 1172 mandated that all knights must have their shoes shined at least thrice a week. Failure to comply could lead to dire consequences, including fines, public shaming, or even temporary demotion from knightly duties. The penalties varied based on the rank of the knight and the frequency of infractions. A first offense might incur a fine of 1 penny, while repeat offenders could find themselves subjected to the indignity of a public shoe shame, where they would be forced to wear a sign stating their negligence. One might imagine a knight, clad in armor, parading around the village while holding a placard reading, "I neglected my shoe shine, and all I got was this lousy sign." Roles and job descriptions. Behind every polished knightly boot stood a dedicated team of servants, known as the shoe squires. These individuals were tasked with the upkeep of their lord's footwear, ensuring they remained in pristine condition for tournaments and court appearances. The shoe squires had a hierarchy of roles. 1. Chief Shoe Squire, CSS, responsible for overseeing the entire shoe maintenance operation. The CSS developed a schedule for shine frequency and ensured compliance with the ordinances. They were often the most experienced, having a keen eye for leather quality and a knack for diplomacy to handle disgruntled knights. 2. Polisher. This role focused solely on the shining aspect, using a mixture of beeswax and tallow to achieve that brilliant luster. The polisher had to be adept at recognizing the nuances of different leathers and adjusting their techniques accordingly. 3. Repairman. The repairman handled any shoe emergencies, from restitching to sole replacement. They possessed an array of tools, including awls, needles, and hammers, and were often regarded as essential in preventing a knight from facing the battlefield with less than ideal footwear. 4. Apprentices. Young lads often entered the trade as apprentices to learn the craft. They would shadow the more experienced shoe squires, learning the art of polishing while also fetching water and materials. One could say they were the soul of the operation, pun intended. Technical specs and inventories. The technical specifications of knightly shoes were quite detailed, as knights often had specific requirements based on their stature and the type of armor they wore. A standard knightly boot would measure approximately 12 inches in height, with a 3-inch heel to accommodate the stirrups of their steeds. The toe of the shoe often featured a slight upward curve, known as a cowboy style, which helped with both foot positioning and aesthetic appeal. An inventory of a knight's shoe maintenance supplies typically included beeswax, 1 pound, for polishing and waterproofing. Tallow, 0.5 pounds, to soften leather and add luster. Rags, 10 pieces, for buffing and applying the wax. Leather scraps, 5 square feet, for repairs. Sewing kit, 1 complete set, including needles and thread. Keeping track of these supplies was crucial. A well-maintained inventory ensured that a knight's footwear was always battle-ready and presentable, thus avoiding any embarrassing slip-ups in court. The enforcement of regulations. The enforcement of shoe shine regulations fell under the jurisdiction of local lords, who employed a group of inspectors, often referred to as the shoe watch. These inspectors would conduct random inspections, checking for compliance with the shine frequency. They carried tools for measuring shine levels, such as the luster gauge, a rudimentary device that assessed shine quality based on reflectiveness. Inspections could lead to humorous situations. Imagine a knight, having just returned from a grueling battle, being subjected to a shine inspection only to be found lacking. The inspector might quip, "You may have defeated a dragon, but you've met your match in a dull shoe." The decline of regulations. By the late 14th century, as the role of knights evolved and the nature of warfare changed, the stringent regulations regarding shoe shining began to fade. The rise of gunpowder and the decline of mounted combat led to a decreased emphasis on knightly appearance. As armor became less common, so too did the necessity for well-polished footwear. However, the legacy of these regulations remained in the form of guilds and trade practices. The Shoemakers' Guild, established in 1390, began to focus on the craftsmanship of shoes rather than the frequency of shine. They offered apprenticeship programs and provided quality standards for shoemaking, ensuring that even as the shine fell away, the quality remained. A final reflection. The regulations surrounding the frequency of shoe shining for knights may seem trivial in the grand tapestry of medieval history. Still, they highlight an era where bureaucratic minutiae shaped daily life, even for those who wielded swords and shielded kingdoms. The next time you lace up your boots or polish your shoes, consider the knights of yore and their struggles against the insatiable demands of shine frequency. After all, maintaining a good shine might have been less about vanity and more about survival. No one wants to be the knight with the dull shoes in the heat of battle or at the round table. In the end, the drab history of knight shoe shine frequency regulations serves as a reminder that even the most noble of pursuits can be burdened by the banalities of governance and maintenance. Who knew the path to glory was so riddled with bureaucratic potholes? The drab history of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations. In the shadowy corridors of medieval castles, where the clang of armor met the whispers of courtly intrigue, one might assume that the most pressing concerns of a knight included warfare, honor, and jousting tournaments. Yet, Beneath the clamor of clashing swords lay a surprisingly intricate bureaucracy dedicated to the upkeep of knightly footwear. Yes, we're talking about the oft-overlooked regulations governing the frequency and methods of shoe shining. Let us embark on a brisk journey through this drab yet fascinating history, one that shines a light on the unsung heroes of the medieval era, the shoe shiners. #### Construction methods and materials, 1000 to 1300. The medieval knight's shoe, or sandalum, evolved significantly between the 10th and 14th centuries. Initially constructed from simple leather, by the late 11th century, they began to incorporate various materials, including hardened leather, metal tips, and even fabrics such as wool for warmth. The shoes of a knight were typically made from cowhide, famed for its durability, while some adventurous nobles experimented with exotic leathers such as elephant or crocodile, although these were often frowned upon as ostentatious. Key materials *. Cowhide * standard for most knights, durable and relatively inexpensive. Goatskin * used for lighter, more breathable footwear, especially in warmer climates. Metal tips * added for traction and to protect the shoe's toe, often embellished with engravings. Wool linings * offered warmth and comfort, especially in the colder northern regions. Construction methods were labor-intensive, typically involving tanners, cobblers, and armorers. The shoe shine process, as we shall see, required an understanding of these materials to maintain their integrity. #### Costs of footwear and shine. The cost of knightly footwear varied widely. A basic pair of cowhide shoes might set a squire back a mere 2 shillings, while an ornate pair with metal accents could climb to 10 shillings or more, equivalent to several days' wages for a common laborer. The shoe shine itself was a different beast entirely. Often viewed as an essential service, it was priced modestly. A standard shine would run 1 halfpenny, but knights were known to tip generously to ensure their shoes gleamed like the sun, leading to a thriving economy of shoe shiners. #### Bureaucratic rules and punishments. By the late 12th century, as feudalism solidified and the importance of noble image became paramount, regulations emerged. The Shoe Shine Statutes of 1203, the first of their kind, mandated that knights must maintain their footwear in a state befitting their rank. The rules stipulated that shoes should be shined at least once a week, but for knights preparing for battle or royal appearances, they were required to undergo a shine every 3 days. Key regulations *. Frequency of shine *. Weekly for regular knights. Bi-weekly for those of higher rank. Every 3 days prior to tournaments or royal events. Materials approved for shine *. Beeswax, animal fats, and natural dyes were allowed. Synthetic or chemically treated materials were strictly prohibited to prevent damage to the leather. Punishments for non-compliance *. First offense *, a warning issued by the local lord. Second offense *, a fine of 1 shilling, a significant amount for a squire. Third offense *, a public humiliation where the knight must parade through the village barefoot, carrying their filthy shoes. One might argue that being forced to display one's dirty footwear in public is a punishment worse than a swift sword to the chest, but alas, the medieval mind was a curious one. Hashtag roles and job descriptions. Shoe shiners, often referred to as cordwainers or podiatrists, though not to be confused with modern-day foot specialists, held a unique position within the medieval social hierarchy. Their role was not merely to polish shoes but to ensure that footwear was maintained to the standards set forth by the shoe shine statutes. Key roles *. 1. Royal cordwainers *. Tasked with caring for the shoes of royalty and high nobility. Required to have extensive knowledge of materials and polishing techniques. Often worked in the castle or estate of their lord. 2. Town shiners *. Operated in market squares, offering services to knights and commoners alike. Often employed apprentices, passing down knowledge and skills. 3. Apprentices *. Young boys or young men learning the trade. Duties included gathering materials, cleaning, and learning the intricacies of shine techniques. Hashtag technical specs and inventories. By the early 14th century, as shoe shining gained prominence, a standardization of tools and techniques emerged. The following is a detailed inventory of the essential equipment used by a knight shoe shiner. Essential equipment *. Polishing cloths * typically made from soft cotton or wool, essential for a high gloss finish. Buffing brushes * stiff bristled brushes for applying wax and soft bristle brushes for buffing to a shine. Leather conditioners * mixtures of natural oils and fats, often homemade, to preserve the leather. Dyes * natural dyes derived from plants for color touch-ups, particularly for nobility with colorful footwear. Hashtag the rise of the guilds, 1300 to 1400. As the 14th century dawned, the shoe shining profession began to formalize. Guilds were established, offering training, apprenticeships, and a set of rules to maintain quality. The Guild of Shiners, founded in 1328, required its members to adhere to strict standards regarding materials, shine frequency, and customer service. To gain entry into this guild, one had to pass a rigorous examination, demonstrating knowledge of leather care, shine techniques, and the guild's regulations. Membership offered numerous benefits, including protection from competition, the right to charge higher prices, and a network of fellow shiners to share techniques and strategies. Guild regulations *. All members must adhere to the shoe shine statutes. Regular inspections of members' shops to ensure compliance with cleanliness and quality standards. A system of fines for members who failed to uphold the guild's reputation. Hashtag witty asides. As we delve deeper into this historical quagmire, one cannot help but ponder, was there ever a knight who lost a battle due to poor shoe maintenance? Perhaps a knight, too embarrassed to face his enemy, decided to retreat rather than show off his scuffed shoes. And really, one must wonder about the knight who, upon hearing of his punishment, thought, if only my shoes could shine as brightly as my armor, perhaps I would have fared better in the eyes of the court. Conclusion. The history of medieval night shoe shine frequency regulations is a tale of unexpected complexities amid the backdrop of chivalry and valor. From the materials and costs associated with nightly shoes to the bureaucratic punishments for non-compliance, the shoe shiners of the medieval era played an integral role in shaping the image of the knight. Their work ensured that while the battlefield might be the site of glory, the court remained a realm of polish, both in the literal and metaphorical sense. As we lace up our own shoes today, perhaps we can spare a thought for those medieval cordwainers and their meticulous shine schedules. After all, in a world where appearance often mattered more than substance, having a well-polished shoe was half the battle won, even if it was just to impress the ladies at court. The Drab history of medieval night shoe shine frequency regulations. The medieval era, often romanticized for its chivalry and gallantry, had a less glamorous side, the regulation of shoe shine frequency for knights. Though one might think that knights were solely occupied with jousting and quests, they were also subject to a bewildering array of regulations regarding their footwear. Let's delve into the drab history of these regulations, exploring construction methods, bureaucratic rules, job roles, and the technical specifications that govern shoe care. Construction methods and materials. Knight's shoes, often referred to as sabatons when armored, were constructed with a variety of materials, each chosen for durability and functionality. 1. Leather. The primary material was leather, sourced from cattle, goats, or even deer. Tanning methods varied, with techniques like vegetable tanning being common. By the late 13th century, the demand for high-quality leather spurred workshops to adopt more efficient methods, meaning knights could keep their boots scuff-free without breaking the bank. 2. Metal. For the more affluent knights, sabatons were made of metal plates, often riveted to leather bases. This not only added protection but also necessitated a different approach to maintenance, given the susceptibility of metal to rust. 3. Costs. The cost of knightly footwear was substantial. A good pair of leather boots could cost between 3 to 5 shillings in the late 14th century, while metal sabatons might run as high as 20 shillings. Given that a knight's annual income could range from 20 to 500 shillings, footwear was a significant investment, akin to buying a new horse today. Bureaucratic rules and punishments. As with many aspects of medieval life, the upkeep of knightly footwear was not merely a matter of personal pride but also a bureaucratic obligation. Several regulations emerged, particularly during the reign of Edward III, 1327 to 1377, aimed at maintaining the dignity of the knightly class. 1. Frequency of shine. A decree from 1350 mandated that knights must have their shoes shined at least twice a week. This was to ensure that knights presented a polished appearance, which was deemed vital for upholding the chivalric code. 2. Inspection protocol. Local lords were responsible for appointing shoe inspectors. Yes, that was a real title. These inspectors would conduct bi-weekly checks, armed with a checklist that included shine quality, leather condition, and metal integrity. 3. Fines and punishments. Failure to comply with these regulations could result in hefty fines, up to 10 shillings, or even public shaming. Imagine being paraded around town with your unsightly, unshined boots. 4. Extraordinary measures. If a knight was found repeatedly in violation of shine regulations, he could face knightly disgrace, a temporary demotion that could bar him from participating in tournaments. One can only imagine the embarrassment of being sidelined for simply neglecting a shoe shine. ###### roles and job descriptions. The shoe shine regulations created a unique job market in medieval society. Various roles emerged, each with its own responsibilities. 1. Shoe inspectors. As mentioned, these officials enforced shine regulations. Typically, they were former knights who had retired from active duty. Their keen eye for detail was essential, and they were tasked with ensuring that each knight's shoes met the established standards. 2. Shiners. These were the individuals responsible for the actual shining. Often apprentices to cobblers or leather workers, shiners were paid modestly, typically receiving a penny per shine. Their toolkit usually included a soft cloth, often made from old tunics, beeswax or tallow-based polish, a small brush, often fashioned from animal hair. 3. Cobblers. While their primary focus was on crafting and repairing footwear, cobblers also acted as part-time educators, teaching shiners the art of shoe care. They would often provide the necessary materials for shining, ensuring that their apprentices were well equipped. 4. Tanners. Although not directly involved in the shining process, tanners played a crucial role in the life cycle of knightly shoes. Their expertise in processing leather ensured that knights had access to high-quality materials, which ultimately affected shine quality. One might say that shoe shining was the medieval equivalent of today's trendy artisanal coffee shops. Everyone wanted the best, but few could afford the highest quality without breaking a sweat, or a few shillings. ##### technical specs and inventories. The regulations also stipulated technical specifications that defined what constituted an acceptable shine. These guidelines were meticulously documented in local ordinances and often included 1. Shine gloss. Shoes had to exhibit a mirror-like gloss, which was achieved through a combination of polishing techniques and the right type of wax. Local guilds often debated the best polish to use, with some even claiming that the combination of beeswax and bear fat yielded superior results. 2. Durability standards. Shoes were required to withstand a minimum of 100 miles of wear before showing significant signs of deterioration. This led to the rise of rigorous testing protocols, where shoes would be worn over designated distances to ensure quality. 3. Inventory checks. Annual inventory checks were mandated for knights, requiring detailed records of the number of shoes owned, their condition, and last shine date. Such meticulous record-keeping ensured that knights could not simply stash away unshined shoes until the next tournament. 4. Preventive measures. Knights were encouraged to regularly condition their shoes to prevent cracks and maintain flexibility. The recommended practice was to apply a wax-based conditioner every fortnight, complementing the mandatory shines. Now, Imagine a knight preparing for battle, not only donning his armor but also ensuring his boots were in tip-top shape. A knight without a shine is like a jester without a joke, they might have said, though one suspects the jester would have had sharper shoes. Conclusion: the lasting legacy of shoe shine regulations. As the medieval period waned and the Renaissance blossomed, the stringent regulations surrounding shoe shine frequency began to fade. However, the legacy of these laws continues to echo through history. The importance placed on appearance and presentation in the knightly class set standards for grooming that have persisted into modern times, albeit with less bureaucratic oversight. Today, while we may not have official shoe inspection committees, the concept of maintaining polished shoes remains relevant. Whether in professional settings or for special occasions, the timeless appeal of a well-shined shoe echoes the values of dignity and respect that medieval knights held dear. So, the next time you take a moment to polish your shoes, remember the drab history that once dictated such practices. It's a small reminder that, even in a world filled with heroic quests, the little things, like a good shoe shine, played a significant role in the grand tapestry of history. The drab history of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, actually, just over the hill and past the swamp, medieval knights were not just known for their daring deeds and clanking armor, they were also deeply concerned about the shine of their shoes. Yes, you heard that right. While most people assumed that knights were too busy jousting and slaying dragons to worry about foot hygiene, a closer inspection of the historical ledger reveals a different tale altogether. Welcome to the drab history of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations, a truly riveting saga of laws, logistics, and the occasional grotesque anecdote. Regional variations over time. Medieval Europe was hardly a monolith of knightly fashion, instead, it was a veritable patchwork quilt of regional variations in shoe shine regulations. In England, for instance, the famed King Henry II, who had his hands full with everything from feudal disputes to scandalous romances, also found time to decree that knights must shine their shoes at least once a week. This edict was likely spurred on by complaints from the nobility who were tired of seeing their brave warriors traipsing about with mud-caked boots, ruining the otherwise pristine aesthetic of court. Meanwhile, in France, where fashion always takes precedence over practicality, knights were required to polish their footwear daily. This was not merely a suggestion but rather a law enacted by the ever-fabulous King Louis IX, who believed that a knight's shine was directly related to his valor. The logic was simple: a knight who cared for his shoes was less likely to run away from battle and more likely to win the hearts of fair maidens. So, while the English knights were just trying to get by with a weekly scrub, their French counterparts were bustling about, buffing and polishing like their lives depended on it, because, in a way, they did. As we hop across the channel to Germany, we find an entirely different approach. German knights had a more laissez-faire attitude about shoe shine frequency, relying on the wisdom of their own feet. The tradition there was to only shine shoes before significant battles or when attending royal courts. This practical stance stemmed from the belief that dirt on a knight's shoes was a sign of readiness for the rigors of battle. "Why polish when you can fight?" they said, probably while stepping into a mud puddle. ##### laws, edicts, taxes, and ledgers. As the demand for polished footwear grew, so too did the bureaucratic machinery required to regulate it. Town criers, those medieval social media influencers, would announce laws and edicts concerning shoe shine frequencies, much to the chagrin of everyone within earshot. In England, the Shoe Shine Act of 1185 mandated that every knight must keep a ledger of their shoe polishing habits, an early form of what we might now call personal grooming audits. These ledgers weren't just for show. They were a matter of record-keeping that could affect a knight's standing in the community. A knight caught neglecting his shoe shine responsibilities could be fined, shunned, or even lose his honorary title. A little-known fact: the fines collected from these infractions contributed to the royal coffers, which were notoriously empty, thanks to constant wars and the king's questionable investments in artisanal catapults. Taxes were also levied on shoe polish itself, turning the simple act of maintaining a knight's footwear into a profitable business venture. Enterprising cobblers began concocting their own potions, often featuring dubious ingredients and a lot of marketing flair. "Knight's Polish," now with extra shine and a hint of dragon's breath, became a popular slogan, despite the obvious ethical concerns surrounding dragon exploitation. #### logistics and supply chains. The logistics of shoe shine supplies were nothing short of a medieval marvel. Imagine a supply chain that involved everything from sourcing the finest fats for leather conditioning to importing the rarest pigments for dyes. The shoe polish industry boomed, and with it came a network of suppliers who had to navigate the treacherous roads of medieval Europe. Bandits, wild animals, and the occasional confused peasant were all obstacles to be managed in order to deliver that vital tin of stalwart knight polish to the local market. Transportation was a nightmare. Most polish was transported via donkey, and as anyone who has ever dealt with a stubborn donkey knows, they have a tendency to wander off. This led to situations where entire shipments of polish ended up being devoured by hungry animals or rolling off cliffs, much to the dismay of the knights who relied on it for their pre-battle rituals. But let's not forget the distribution side. Local cobblers would stock up on polishes from traveling salesmen, who would often set up shop in the town square. They became the influencers of their time, showcasing their wares with an exaggerated flair, promising that their polish would ensure a shine so bright, dragons will think you're one of them. #### record keeping with lots of specifics. The record-keeping aspect of the shoe shine regulations was an endeavor worthy of its own medieval bureaucracy. Knights were required to maintain comprehensive records of every shine, including the date, time, weather conditions, and sometimes even the mood of the knight at the time of polishing. These records were meticulously filed in the nightly ledger of shoe maintenance, and presented during inspections held by the local lord. Imagine the scene: a lord in his finest robes, flanked by his advisors, flipping through the leather-bound tomes of knight's shoe shine logs. "Ah, Sir Geoffrey, I see you shined your shoes on a Tuesday after a particularly rousing game of chess. How fortuitous. Perhaps you should consider more frequent polishing before your next joust." These inspections often devolved into absurdity, with knights desperately trying to remember the last time they had actually cleaned their shoes. It was, must have been a Tuesday, or a Wednesday. Or was it during that particularly muddy skirmish? One night, Sir Reginald the Reluctant became infamous for his lackadaisical approach to record-keeping. He famously wrote, "Shined shoes, but only because I slipped in the mud and had to clean them off," which led to a lengthy debate among the lords about whether that constituted a legitimate shoe shine. Spoiler alert, it did not. One surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote. Now, dear reader, let's delve into the darker corners of this otherwise mundane history. One particularly grotesque anecdote involves Sir Alastair the Anxious, a knight known for his abysmally unshined shoes and his penchant for dodging the shoe shine regulations. In a fit of desperation, he attempted to make his own polish using a mixture of soot, pig fat, and, wait for it, his own toenail clippings. Yes, you read that correctly. Sir Alastair believed that the secret to a perfect shine lay in the sacred combination of his own bodily remnants. He claimed that his clippings gave the polish an unmatched luster. Unfortunately, he was quickly banned from all social gatherings after an unfortunate incident at the royal banquet, where the smell of foot odor wafted through the hall, causing guests to faint and the king to demand an immediate investigation. The anecdote of Sir Alastair and his toenail polish became a cautionary tale told to knights across the realm. Remember, lads. "A knight's polish should never come from his own feet," became the rallying cry for knights everywhere, ensuring that the practice of shoe shining would remain a noble endeavor, free from the horrors of personal hygiene gone awry. Conclusion. As we wrap up this whimsical exploration of the drab history of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations, we're left with a vivid tapestry of regional laws, logistical nightmares, and some truly absurd anecdotes. The quest for shiny shoes may seem trivial in the grand scheme of chivalry and valor, but it reminds us that even in the darkest of times, the absurdity of human nature shines through, sometimes, quite literally. So, the next time you see a knight in shining armor, remember, there's a whole history behind that shine, filled with regulations, logistics, and the occasional toenail polish. And as you polish your own shoes, spare a thought for those brave knights who fought for the right to have a good shine, because no one wants to ride into battle with dirty shoes, after all. The drab history of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations. Gather around, dear readers, as we embark on a journey through time, a time so dreary and unremarkable that even the pigeons have left town. Yes, we're diving deep into the cobwebbed corners of history to unearth the unsung saga of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations. That's right. While you might think that knights were busy saving damsels and slaying dragons, they were also grappling with the monumental task of keeping their footwear in top-notch condition. Who knew shining shoes could be as complicated as a medieval love triangle? Regional variations, the shoes that stomped the grounds. As the sun rose over the feudal landscape, knights across Europe were faced with the Sisyphean challenge of maintaining their footwear. Different regions had their own unique regulations concerning how often one should polish their armor-clad boots. In England, the Shoe Shine Statute of 1272 mandated a bi-weekly buffing session for knights of noble birth. However, in the sunny climes of southern France, where the knights were more interested in sipping wine than polishing shoes, the regulations allowed for a more relaxed schedule, once every 3 weeks, or whenever the moon was full, whichever came first. Meanwhile, in the icy realms of Scandinavia, the shoe shine laws were dictated less by aesthetics and more by practicality. Here, knights were encouraged to shine their shoes every day, not out of vanity, but to prevent the frostbite that could result from neglecting their footgear. One can only imagine the fleeting joy of a knight discovering that a well-shined boot could mean the difference between a splendid victory in battle and a rather embarrassing slip on the ice. ##### laws, edicts, taxes, and ledgers, the bureaucratic footnotes. Ah, the thrill of medieval bureaucracy. Who doesn't love a good law or two, especially when it pertains to the maintenance of knightly footwear? The laws governing shoe shining were often more convoluted than a game of chess played by squirrels. In 1345, the Edict of the Gleaming Sole was issued in the Holy Roman Empire, establishing a standardized shoe shine frequency of once a fortnight. This edict, however, came with a twist. A tax was imposed on every shoe shine session. Yes, knights were required to pay a Polish tax to the local lord, who, in turn, used the funds to finance his extravagant banquets and questionable investments in jousting tournaments. The ledgers of these taxes provide a fascinating glimpse into the financial landscape of shoe care. One particularly notorious ledger from the town of Wittenberg in 1389 details the meticulous records kept by the Shoe Shine Guild. Here, scribes recorded not only the frequency of shoe shines but also the names of the knights and their corresponding fees. The entries read like a medieval gossip column. Sir Geoffrey of the Shiny Boots paid 3 pence for his shine, while Sir Reginald, who had been spotted wearing scuffed shoes, was fined an additional penny for his egregious neglect. #### logistics and supply chains, the Polish peddlers. Now, let's talk logistics. You might be surprised to learn that the medieval shoe shine industry was no small feat. Supplies were needed, transporting wax and cloth across treacherous terrain to ensure that knights had the proper materials for maintaining their footwear. Enter the shine peddlers, traveling merchants who made it their life's mission to peddle the finest shoe care products. They traveled from castle to castle, lugging heavy sacks filled with the latest wax concoctions, buffing cloths, and shoehorns. The supply chain was as complicated as a knight's armor. The wax was often made from a secret blend of beeswax, tallow, and the occasional dash of unicorn horn, because why not? A peddler might start their journey in the bustling markets of Paris, travel through the treacherous Alps, and end up at a remote castle in Scotland. Along the way, they faced myriad challenges: bandits who wanted to steal their wares, muddy roads that turned carts into sinking ships, and of course, the occasional knight who simply wanted to barter for a shine instead of paying. Once the supplies reached their destination, the real work began. Shoe shiners, usually the lowest tier of the social hierarchy, were expected to keep meticulous records of their services. Each shine was logged with the knight's name, the date, and a note of any special requests. Sir Edmund prefers a light buffing with a hint of lavender, one entry might read, while another could reveal, Lord Frederick demanded an extra coat for his battle with the dragon last Thursday. The drama. ####record keeping, the chronicles of Shine. Record keeping. The unsung hero of medieval bureaucracy. Shoeshiners maintained ledgers that would make even the most meticulous accountant weep with joy. These records not only captured the frequency of shines but also included the shoe condition, the type of boot, whether it was a traditional high top or an avant-garde open-toed design, and the night-specific requests. Sir Roland enjoyed a splash of peppermint oil for that extra zing, one particularly colorful entry might declare. These ledgers were not just for the benefit of the shoeshiner, they served as an early form of social media. Knights would boast about their impeccable shoe care, and rivalries often brewed over who had the shiniest boots in the realm. Have you seen Sir Percival's boots? They shine brighter than the sun. I simply must challenge him to a duel, one knight might exclaim at a feast, only to be met with rolled eyes and the sound of clinking goblets. Occasionally, these records would reveal scandalous affairs. Take, for example, the case of the Great Shine Scandal of 1397, in which it was discovered that a shoeshiner had been double-dipping. Yes, he had been polishing the boots of two rival knights simultaneously, leading to a heated confrontation that ended in a duel. One can only imagine the absurdity of knights clashing in battle while wearing gleaming boots that had been recently buffed to perfection. ####A surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote. Now, if you're still with me and haven't fallen asleep yet, here comes the piece de resistance, a rather grotesque anecdote that illustrates just how far knights would go to maintain their shoe shine frequency. In 1432, a particularly overzealous knight named Sir Hubert of the Blinding Polish became infamous for his unorthodox approach to shoe care. Legend has it that Sir Hubert, determined to achieve the ultimate shine, concocted a special blend of wax that included not only the usual beeswax and tallow but also a dash of human urine. Yes, you read that correctly. It was believed that the ammonia in urine would amplify the shine, making boots gleam like they were polished by the angels themselves. Sir Hubert, in his quest for the shiniest boots in the realm, would sneak into the local tavern at night and collect donations from the drunken patrons for his dubious concoction. The result? A pair of boots so shiny that they were said to blind anyone who dared to look directly at them. However, the foul odor emanating from Sir Hubert's feet soon led to his downfall. Knights began to distance themselves, and the once respected knight found himself ostracized from the court, where he had previously been the life of the party. The moral of the story: sometimes, a little shine goes a long way, but too much can leave you friendless and smelling like a stable. Conclusion, the legacy of the Shining Knights. So, dear readers, the next time you find yourself grumbling over the mundane task of polishing your shoes, consider the trials and tribulations of medieval knights. They didn't just battle dragons and rescue damsels, they fought a silent war against scuffed boots, waged through laws, taxes, and the logistics of supply chains. Their stories remind us that even in the drab corridors of history, there lurked a surprisingly vibrant tapestry of human absurdity. As we bid adieu to the drab history of medieval night shoe shine frequency regulations, let us raise a glass, of non-urine-based beverage, please, to the knights of yore, the unsung heroes who fought valiantly not just for honor and glory, but for that ultimate gleam on their boots. After all, a knight's worth may very well be measured by the shine of his shoes. Cheers! The Drab History of Medieval Night Shoe Shine Frequency Regulations. Once upon a time, in a realm where the stench of unbathed humanity mingled with the earthy aroma of horses, a peculiar aspect of medieval life emerged, the regulation of night shoe shine frequency. Yes, dear reader, while you might be more inclined to ponder the intricacies of jousting or the ennui of courtly love, the fate of a knight's boots was no less a reflection of the societal norms of the day, complete with regional variations, laws, taxes, and, surprisingly, a dash of grotesque history thrown in for flavor. ##### Regional variations over time. Let's kick things off with the delightful regional variations. Much like how one might argue about the superiority of a baguette over a ciabatta, medieval shoe shine practices were not uniform across the kingdom. In England, for instance, knights were strictly required to keep their boots shining like the morning sun. After all, nothing says, "I'm ready for battle," like a reflective polish that could blind an enemy from 50 paces. Across the Channel in France, however, the knights took a more laissez-faire approach to footwear upkeep. There, the law dictated that boots should be cleaned at least once a week, but only on days when the moon was full. This bizarre lunar dependency, possibly an early form of astrological shoe care, led to some rather interesting logistical challenges. Knights were often left scrambling to shine their boots during high-stakes battles, when sunlight was scarce, and the moon was on holiday. In the Holy Roman Empire, the regulations took a turn for the meticulous. Here, the shoe shine frequency was dictated not by arbitrary lunar phases but by a complex matrix of social standing, battlefield readiness, and, believe it or not, the type of dirt accumulated on one's boots. Knights who fought in mud-laden battles were given a reprieve, while those who merely trotted around in well-manicured fields were subjected to stricter shine mandates. It was a veritable plutocracy, where peasant mud could save a knight's life, if only they knew when to roll in it. ##### laws, edicts, taxes, and ledgers. Now, if you think the shoe shine regulations were mere suggestions, you would be woefully mistaken. In 1293, King Edward I of England issued the Edict of Polished Sole, which established a series of rules that knights were required to follow regarding the maintenance of their footwear. This edict stated that knights must shine their boots every day before dawn, lest they be subjected to a fine of 3 pence, an exorbitant sum capable of buying a small chicken or, more importantly, a decent tankard of mead. The fine was collected through an intricate system of ledgers maintained by the local constabulary, who monitored the knights' shoe shine schedules with the same fervor as modern-day tax collectors. Imagine a constable with a clipboard, checking off names while simultaneously dodging stray arrows and the occasional jousting lance. If a knight was caught with scuffed boots, It was not just a matter of pride, it could lead to a significant markdown in their social standing, not to mention tarnished reputations. Taxes on shoe polish also entered the fray. The infamous shiny sole tax levied a charge on all merchants selling boot polish, ensuring that even the humble act of shining shoes contributed to the royal coffers. This led to a black market of sorts, where rogue polish makers concocted potions in dark alleys, promising a shine that could withstand the rigors of battle and even the judgmental stare of a lady fair. #### logistics and supply chains. With such fervent shoe care regulations in place, one might wonder about the logistics and supply chains that kept knights' boots gleaming. The production of boot polish became a booming industry, with various regions exporting their own unique blends. The finest polishes came from the southern provinces, where the climate allowed for the growth of special herbs and oils. These were mixed with tallow from sheep and, on particularly extravagant occasions, the crushed shells of rare beetles. Transporting these precious polishes required a network as intricate as the roads themselves. Caravans laden with tins of boot polish would traverse muddy roads, often beset by bandits, who were more interested in the contents of the caravan than the knight's boots. It's said that one particularly enterprising bandit, after stealing a shipment, opened a black market boot shine service, dazzling knights with his illicit wares, until he was caught and sentenced to a life of boot cleaning in the dungeons. A poetic fate, if ever there was one. #### record keeping with lots of specifics. Record keeping, the unsung hero of medieval bureaucracy. The shoe shine regulations required meticulous documentation. Scribes were employed to create vast ledgers, detailing every knight's shoe shine frequency, the quality of the polish used, and even the specific type of dirt encountered. Yes, you heard that right, dirt types were logged. A knight might have a note beside his name reading, "Dirt type, mud from the Battle of Wretched Swamps," which was not only a badge of honor but also a means of negotiating future shoe shine allowances. These ledgers became the stuff of legend, or at least of dusty archives, with some knights even commissioning illuminated manuscripts to showcase their shoe shine records. Imagine a grand volume, adorned with gold leaf and illustrations of knights polishing their boots while dragons loomed ominously in the background. It was the medieval equivalent of Instagram, only with less avocado toast and more bloodshed. #### one surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote. And now, for the piece de resistance, one particularly grotesque anecdote from the annals of shoe shine history. In 1372, during a particularly fierce campaign against the Scots, a knight named Sir Reginald the Reluctant found himself in a rather embarrassing predicament. He had been overly confident in his boot shining routine, believing that a single application of polish would suffice for weeks on end. During a climactic battle, as arrows flew and swords clashed, Sir Reginald's boots became a veritable slip-and-slide of polish and mud. At perhaps the most inopportune moment, as he charged valiantly into the fray, Sir Reginald slipped on his own well-shined boot and fell face-first into a particularly foul patch of mud, one that had been home to a large number of sheep prior to the battle. To make matters worse, as he scrambled to regain his footing, his fellow knights, believing he had been struck down, were momentarily distracted by the sight of their fallen comrade wallowing in sheep excrement. This led to a moment of confusion on the battlefield, resulting in a temporary retreat as knights struggled to contain their laughter. Sir Reginald, of course, was humiliated, but he emerged from the incident with a rather unique moniker, Sir Reginald the Stained. It was a title that followed him for the rest of his days, and he became something of a cautionary tale among knights, a reminder that while one might be armored to the teeth, a good shine could very well be the difference between valor and a face full of sheep dung. ###conclusion. So, dear reader, as you sit comfortably in your modern shoes, perhaps even scuff-free, take a moment to appreciate the absurdity of medieval life. The drab history of night shoe shine frequency regulations may not have made it into your history books, but it's a testament to the length society will go to maintain appearances. Whether it was through strict laws, bizarre lunar edicts, or even the occasional sheep-related mishap, the quest for a shiny boot was as noble as any joust fought in the name of glory. And so, the next time you find yourself pondering the weighty matters of history, remember the knights. They may have wielded swords and shields, but they also carried the burden of shine charts and ledgers, forever etched in the annals of history, one boot at a time. The drab history of medieval night shoe shine frequency regulations. In a world where chivalry reigned supreme and knights galloped valiantly into battle, one crucial detail often got swept under the historical rug, the perplexing and rather tedious regulations regarding shoe shine frequency. Yes, while legends were being forged on the bloody fields of honor, bureaucrats were busy penning laws, edicts, and taxes concerning the shining of steel-toed boots. Let's take a whimsical yet slightly irreverent plunge into this overlooked corner of medieval history, where the shine was just as important as the sword. ### regional variations over time, the glittering divide. Imagine, if you will, the bustling streets of medieval France, where a knight's armor gleamed brighter than a peacock in full display. The French, with their flair for drama, established the Ordonnance de l'Ustrage in 1285, mandating that a knight's footwear must be polished at least twice a week. This wasn't merely about aesthetics, it was about reflecting the glory of the French crown. Nothing says, "I'm ready for battle," quite like a mirror finish, proclaimed King Philip IV, or so the apocryphal legend goes. In contrast, the English, ever the pragmatists, adopted a more laissez-faire attitude. The 1306 Statute of Shine only required knights to shine their shoes once a fortnight. This was a direct response to the growing disdain for excessive bureaucracy. "If I polish my boots every week, how will I have time to joust?" lamented Sir Reginald of Lancaster, a knight known more for his slovenly footwear than his battlefield prowess. Meanwhile, in the rugged realms of Scotland, the regulations were as wild and untamed as the Highlands themselves. Shoe shine. "What's that?" was the general consensus until the Clan Polishing Proclamation of 1402. This decree stated that knights must only clean their boots after a successful raid, leading to the bizarre spectacle of mud-caked footwear becoming a badge of honor. "Aye, lad, 'tis a sign of me victories," they'd boast, right before tripping over their own laces. ### laws, edicts, taxes, and ledgers, the bureaucratic ballet. As we delve deeper into this drab history, we encounter the bureaucratic ballet of shoe shine regulations. The minutiae of medieval law can be mind-boggling, and the records are often drier than a stale piece of bread. The shine tax, introduced in 1375 in the Kingdom of Aragon, was a prime example of how far officials would go to ensure that knights maintained their footwear. A penny for each polish, it was said, could fund an entire year's worth of jousting tournaments. Ah, the thrill of the chase! And the shine of the boot, proclaimed the tax collector, likely while counting his own unpolished shoes. The tax was met with fierce opposition. Knights rallied under the banner of "polished shoes for all," demanding a repeal. Their argument was simple: why should a noble warrior pay for the privilege of looking presentable? After much ado, the tax was abolished, but not before a few unfortunate scribes found themselves buried under an avalanche of ledgers filled with shoe shine fees. The logistics and supply chains surrounding shoe polish were equally labyrinthine. The production of boot black, a mixture of soot, tallow, and some secret ingredient only known to the world's most clandestine bootmakers, was a thriving industry. Towns began to specialize in certain types of polish, leading to fierce rivalries akin to the pizza wars of modern-day New York. "Our polish has the best shine," boasted the townsfolk of Lusterberg, while those from Dullsville retorted, "At least ours doesn't smell like a barn." ####record keeping, the all-important ledger of footwear glossiness. Record keeping in medieval times was a fascinating affair, especially when it came to the regulations of shoe shining. Town criers would announce the latest edicts, and scribes would feverishly pen down every detail, often becoming unwitting historians of footwear. The Register of Radiance, a renowned tome, catalogued every knight's shoe shine frequency and the corresponding level of polish achieved. Such documents were often adorned with illustrations of knights in vibrant armor, gleaming boots on display. One particularly famous entry from the year 1394 reads, "Sir Geoffrey the Gleaming has failed to shine his boots for 3 consecutive weeks, the punishment shall be a public humiliation at the next market day." This form of public shaming was seen as a necessary deterrent against the scourge of unpolished footwear. Imagine the scene: Sir Geoffrey, standing atop a barrel, bootless and shamed, while townsfolk threw dirt and stale bread at him. "Shine, you scoundrel," they would chant, ensuring that no knight dared to neglect his polish again. Interestingly, the records also reveal a correlation between shoe shine frequency and battlefield success. A meticulously polished boot was believed to foretell victory, while a scuffed shoe often foreshadowed defeat. This superstition led to knights polishing their shoes before battles, sometimes even going so far as to hire professional polishers who would follow them into combat. "Whatever it takes to keep the shine," they declare, just as an enemy arrow whizzed by. ###A surprising, borderline grotesque anecdote. And now, dear reader, brace yourself for a tale that borders on the grotesque, a story so bizarre that it could only emerge from the annals of medieval absurdity. In 1423, during a particularly brutal siege, a group of knights found themselves in dire straits. Supplies were low, and they were desperate for anything remotely edible. As the tale goes, Sir Alaric the Unkempt had a particularly foul pair of boots, the sole of which was caked in a mysterious substance that had been collecting for weeks. In a moment of desperation, one knight suggested that they could scrape off the dried muck and use it as a makeshift boot polish. Desperate times call for desperate measures, he declared, and the others, half mad with hunger, agreed. What followed was a surreal scene of knights carefully scraping the sludge from Alaric's boots, mixing it with some leftover tallow, and attempting to apply it to their own shoes. The results were, shall we say, less than glamorous. Instead of shining armor, they achieved a rather repulsive sheen that not only failed to dazzle but also attracted an ungodly number of flies. When they finally emerged from the siege, the knights were met with horrified stares from their fellow warriors. "What in the name of chivalry happened to you?" they gasped, and the tale of the boot polish fiasco became a cautionary legend. #Conclusion, the legacy of shoe shine regulations. So there you have it, the drab history of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations, a subject that may not have the same thrill as jousting or dragon slaying but is nonetheless a fascinating glimpse into the absurdities of human nature. From regional variations to the bizarre logistics of polish production, the tale of shoe shine regulations is one that reminds us of the peculiarities that shaped the medieval world. Next time you lace up your shoes, spare a thought for the knights of yore, who faced not only the perils of war but also the relentless scrutiny of shine frequency. And remember, while the sword may be mightier than the pen, a polished boot can still capture a kingdom's attention. The drab history of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations. In the grand tapestry of medieval history, where knights clashed in battles and ladies swooned over heroic deeds, there exists a tale so drab, so utterly pedestrian, that it could easily be mistaken for a long-forgotten tax code or a particularly dull weather report. Yes, dear reader, we are diving headfirst into the astonishingly thrilling world of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations. Buckle up, for this journey will traverse the cobblestones of regional variations, laws, logistics, and, dare I say, one borderline grotesque anecdote that will make you rethink those impractical shining boots. Regional variations over time, a shiny spectrum. The first, and perhaps most shocking revelation, is that the regulations surrounding shoe shine frequency for knights varied more than the quality of mutton pie at a traveling fair. In the bustling courts of England, for instance, knights were required to have their battle boots polished at least once a week. This was not merely a matter of aesthetics, it was a social expectation. A knight whose boots were dull could be mistaken for a peasant, and we all know how much knights loathed being confused with the hoi polloi. Meanwhile, in France, where fashion reigned supreme even in the heat of battle, the shoe shine regulations were much stricter. Here, knights were required to have their boots polished every 3 days, lest they offend the delicate sensibilities of their noble counterparts. The French had an entire guild dedicated to boot polishers, and woe betide the knight who dared to show up to a jousting match with anything less than a mirror finish. The rivalry between English and French knights was fierce, but it paled in comparison to the tug-of-war over the best shoe polish and shine technique. Eventually, These regulations began to spread across Europe like a particularly stubborn stain. The Holy Roman Empire, with its patchwork of principalities, took a more laissez-faire approach. Some regions barely mentioned shoe shine frequency, while others mandated a quarterly polish. The disparity led to much confusion, and let's be honest, a fair bit of grumbling among knights who just wanted their boots to sparkle without the bureaucratic headache. Laws, edicts, and taxes, the shine tax. Ah, yes, the laws. You thought the medieval period was all about chivalry and gallant quests. Think again. Enter the shine tax, a delightful little edict passed in 1362 by the Grand Council of Knights, which mandated that all knights must pay a yearly fee for the privilege of having their boots polished by a certified boot polisher. The tax was ostensibly meant to support the Guild of Boot Polishers, but it quickly became a source of resentment among the knightly class. Imagine, if you will, a knight returning from a hard-fought battle, covered in grime and glory, only to be met with the grim specter of the shine tax collector. "Good sir," the collector would say, holding a ledger that seemed to have been written in the blood of 1,000 squires, "your boots are not sufficiently polished. I must collect my due." The knight, still winded from battle, would grumble and reach for his coin pouch, all the while cursing the very idea of a shine tax as he begrudgingly surrendered a few precious coins that could have gone toward ale or, heaven forbid, a new sword. The laws surrounding shoe shine frequency became a hot topic, debated vigorously in taverns and courts alike. Some knights argued that the tax was a violation of their rights, while others claimed it was a necessary evil to maintain the dignity of the knightly order. After all, who would want to go into battle with shoes that looked like they'd been through a mudslide? Logistics and supply chains, the Polish network. Now, let's talk logistics. We often romanticize the image of knights charging into battle, but behind every shining set of armor, there existed a complex web of logistics that would make even the most seasoned supply chain manager weep with envy. The boot polishers were not merely artisans, they were the unsung heroes of the medieval world. Their trade routes extended from the bustling streets of London to the quaint villages of Provence. The ingredients for the perfect boot polish varied widely. In England, a concoction made from beeswax, tallow, and a hint of vinegar was favored for its shine and durability. In contrast, the Italians preferred a more exotic blend that included olive oil and crushed herbs, imparting a scent that was, let's say, more appealing than the traditional English blend. These polishers had to navigate a series of supply chains that rivaled the complexity of modern corporate logistics. The wax came from local beekeepers, the tallow from the nearest butcher, and the vinegar from the local tavern, the last being a vital ingredient to ensure that the polish not only shone but also fought off the dreaded mildew that plagued knights' boots after a long, rainy campaign. Record-keeping was essential. Guilds of boot polishers maintained meticulous ledgers to track their supplies, sales, and yes, even the frequency of shines. Knights would often have to sign in to confirm their polishings, leaving behind a trail of signatures that would make even the most dedicated historian weep with joy. Sir Reginald, weekly Polish, and Sir Harold, quarterly Polish, filled the pages, painting a vivid picture of the boot care habits of the knightly class. Record keeping, the Chronicles of Shine. Record keeping, a practice that has been the bane of bureaucrats and knights alike. The Chronicles of Shine were filled with tales of valiant polishings, complete with dates and annotations that could rival the most thrilling of epic poems. One particularly famous entry comes from the year 1378, where a certain Sir Alastair of Glumshire recorded that he had forgotten his polish on the eve of a grand tournament. In a fit of desperation, he attempted to shine his boots using the grease from his trusty warhorse, Sir Thunderclap. The result? A catastrophic failure that led to his disqualification from the tournament and a new entry in the annals of knightly shame, the Great Grease Catastrophe. This incident sparked a wave of regulations mandating that knights not only keep their boots polished but also refrain from utilizing animals for polishing purposes, a law that would have far-reaching implications for the relationship between knights and their steeds. The records of shoe shines were often meticulously maintained, with each knight's name, the date of their last shine, and the name of their polisher scribbled in ink that would stain your fingers if you dared to touch it. The ledgers became a source of pride, a testament to a knight's commitment to cleanliness and presentation. The grotesque anecdote, a Polish tragedy. Now for the piece de resistance, a shocking tale that truly encapsulates the bizarre lengths to which knights would go to maintain their shine. In 1402, during the infamous Battle of Shiny Boots, a knight named Sir Percival the Polished met his fate in the most unfortunate of ways. Legend has it that Sir Percival, known for his dazzlingly reflective boots, was so obsessed with maintaining their shine that he refused to step off the battlefield for a mere moment. As the battle raged on, Sir Percival found himself in a precarious position, cornered by a band of marauding peasants with less than honorable intentions. In a desperate attempt to escape, he attempted a daring maneuver known as the Glorious Retreat. Unfortunately, as he turned to flee, the sunlight hit his polished boots at just the right angle, reflecting blinding light into the eyes of his pursuers. While it sounds like a heroic escape, it took a horrific turn. The peasants, blinded by the gleaming footwear, stumbled into a moat that had been conveniently placed nearby for the very purpose of deterring attackers. Sir Percival, in all his polished glory, became a cautionary tale among knights, forever remembered not for his bravery, but as the man who was undone by his own obsession with shine. Thus, the regulations surrounding shoe shine frequency not only dictated the lives of knights but also shaped the very fabric of medieval society. From laws to logistics, from the simple act of polishing to the absurdity of a shine tax, the drab history of knight shoe shine frequency regulations is one for the ages, a tale of vanity, bureaucracy, and, perhaps most importantly, the perils of a reflective surface. So, the next time you see a knight galloping into battle, remember, beneath that glimmering armor and those shining boots lies a history that's anything but dull. ### the drab history of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations. The image of a knight astride a powerful steed, clad in gleaming armor and wielding a sword, is one of the most enduring symbols of the Middle Ages. Yet, buried beneath the surface of chivalric legends and tales of valor lies a rather mundane, yet fascinating aspect of medieval life, the regulations surrounding the frequency of shoe shining for knights and their mounts. This overlooked topic reveals a tapestry of minor figures, petty rules, and an intricate web of social norms that governed the everyday lives of those who lived in the shadow of castles and feudal lords. ###### minor figures and petty rules. It is easy to overlook the minor figures involved in the enforcement of shoe shine regulations. Among them were the local shoemakers, known as cordwainers, who played a crucial role in maintaining the footwear of knights. These artisans were not merely craftsmen, they were also enforcers of the unwritten laws regarding shoe cleanliness, often working under the watchful eyes of local lords and their stewards. One notable figure from the early 13th century is Sir Reginald of Soggy-Bottom, a knight known for his formidable reputation in battle but whose greatest achievement was his relentless pursuit of shoe cleanliness. Sir Reginald instituted a decree in 1215 that mandated all knights within his fief to shine their shoes before any public event, lest they face a fine of 3 pence. This decree, while seemingly trivial, established a culture of cleanliness that rippled through the ranks of lesser knights and even down to their squires. The shoe shine frequency regulations could vary widely depending on the region and the status of the individual knight. In some areas, knights were required to shine their shoes once a week, while in others, particularly those of higher rank, daily shining was deemed necessary. These petty rules created a hierarchy of cleanliness, with a knight's social standing often reflected in the gloss of his footwear. ######Case studies with dates and lists. The historical records reveal a fascinating array of case studies that illustrate the application of shoe shine regulations. One such example can be found in the town of Lancelotshire, where the local council convened in 1273 to discuss the growing concern over the state of knights' shoes. The Council of Lancelotshire compiled a list of shoe maintenance requirements for knights, which included 1. Daily polishing. All knights were required to polish their shoes every morning before dawn. 2. Quarterly inspections. Every 3 months, a designated shoe inspector appointed by the Lord would assess the condition of knights' footwear. 3. Public shining events. Once a month, the town would hold a public shoe shining event where knights would gather to demonstrate their commitment to cleanliness. In a rare twist, the records also reveal a humorous incident involving Sir Geoffrey the Grimy, who was famously fined in 1282 for not only failing to shine his shoes but also for attempting to pass off a pair of worn-out sandals as knightly footwear. His punishment? A public humiliation in which he was required to polish the shoes of every knight present at the next tournament. Another noteworthy case occurred in 1347 in the county of Kent, where a group of knights petitioned the local lord for an exemption from the shoe shine regulations. Their argument hinged on the rough terrain they traversed in their duties, which they claimed rendered any effort at shoe shining futile. The lord, however, was not swayed and instead introduced a new rule that required knights to carry a portable shoe shine kit at all times, a regulation that sparked a minor rebellion among the knights. ###### Comparisons to other regions. While the regulations surrounding shoe shining were particularly prevalent in England, similar norms existed in other regions of medieval Europe, albeit with some regional variations. In France, for instance, the concept of cleanliness among knights was less rigidly enforced, but the idea of noble presentation was paramount. French knights were known to adorn their footwear with intricate embroidery and jewels, making the act of shining less about utility and more about aesthetics. In contrast, the Germanic regions had a more pragmatic approach. A 1375 decree from the Duke of Saxony mandated that all knights must shine their shoes before attending any court functions, but the frequency was left to individual discretion. This leniency resulted in a more relaxed attitude towards shoe maintenance, though failures to comply were met with ridicule at court, a punishment that was often worse than any fine. The Italian city-states, on the other hand, were preoccupied with fashion. The Florentine knights took shoe shining to an art form, with guilds forming around the craft of shoemaking and polishing. They held annual competitions to determine the best shoe shiner, elevating the practice from a mundane necessity to a celebrated cultural event. Archaeological tidbits. Archaeological discoveries provide tangible insights into the shoe shining practices of the medieval period. Excavations in the town of Lancelotshire revealed a trove of shoe shine kits dating back to the 14th century, complete with brushes, cloths, and various polishes made from natural ingredients like beeswax and animal fat. These artifacts tell a story not only of the craftsmanship of the time but also of the societal importance placed on footwear maintenance. In a surprising find in the ruins of a castle in Yorkshire, archaeologists uncovered a cache of shoe shine regulations inscribed on parchment. The document, dating to 1254, outlines the roles of local shoemakers and the fines associated with non-compliance. This document serves as a rare glimpse into the administrative side of shoe maintenance, highlighting the seriousness with which these regulations were treated. Additionally, remnants of elaborate shoe cleaning stations have been discovered in several noble estates, indicating that shoe shining was not merely a personal responsibility but a communal activity. These stations often featured large basins for washing shoes and polishing areas equipped with tools and products, suggesting that maintaining footwear was a social endeavor that involved both knights and their servants. Rhetorical questions to hook curiosity. How did a simple act of polishing shoes become a matter of social status in the feudal hierarchy? And what does the history of shoe shine regulations reveal about the underlying values of cleanliness and presentation in medieval society? Conclusion. The drab history of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations may not be the stuff of heroic sagas or epic battles, but it serves as a reminder that even the most mundane aspects of life can hold significant social meaning. The interplay of minor figures, petty rules, and regional differences paints a vivid picture of a society where the shine of a knight's shoes could make or break his standing. In the end, the exploration of this overlooked facet of medieval life prompts us to reconsider the dynamics of power, class, and identity in a world where even the smallest details mattered. As we reflect on the absurdity of such regulations, we may find ourselves asking not just about the past, but about how the echoes of these customs resonate in our own lives today. The drab history of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations. In the annals of medieval history, the tales of gallant knights, epic battles, and chivalrous quests tend to overshadow the more mundane aspects of their lives. Yet, nestled within the fabric of this era exists a surprisingly intricate system of regulations governing the frequency of shoe shining for knights. While it may seem trivial at first glance, these regulations reveal a fascinating glimpse into the societal norms, class distinctions, and even the practicalities of daily life during a time of both grandeur and drudgery. In this exploration, we shall delve into the minor figures and petty rules that shaped this unusual facet of medieval life, examine case studies that illuminate the quirks of these regulations, compare practices across regions, unearth archaeological tidbits, and pose rhetorical questions that provoke thought about the nature of honor and appearance in the medieval world. #####Minor figures and petty rules. At the heart of shoe shine frequency regulations were a host of minor figures, local lords, village magistrates, and even town criers, who wielded the power to enforce these seemingly trivial mandates. In the small but significant village of Bladewick, for instance, Lord Gerald the Gloomy issued a peculiar edict in 1284, "Let it be known that all knights within the fiefdom shall ensure their footwear is polished no less than once every fortnight, lest they be subjected to a night in the stocks." This regulation highlights not only the enforcement of appearance but also the humorous consequences of neglecting one's shoe upkeep. In the bustling market town of St. Ives, the local constable, a man known as Sir Hobbledank, took it upon himself to monitor the knight's footwear closely. He developed a system of colored ribbons to indicate compliance: green for adequately polished shoes, yellow for shoes that required polishing, and red for those that were deemed disgracefully dirty. Knights found themselves in a peculiar predicament, facing disdain not only from their peers but also from the townsfolk who took great pleasure in spotting a red-ribbon knight ambling through the marketplace. These minor figures and their petty rules serve as a reminder that the maintenance of appearances extended beyond mere vanity. It was a reflection of one's status and respectability in society. A knight with dirty shoes could be seen as lacking the discipline required of a true warrior, while a polished pair of boots signified readiness for battle, both on the field and in the court. ####Case studies with dates and lists. To illustrate the absurdity and intricacies of shoe shine regulations, we can examine a series of case studies from various locales, detailing the dates and specific instances that showcase the enforcement of these rules. Case Study 1, The Polishing Proclamation of 1347, Nottinghamshire. In 1347, the town of Nottinghamshire issued a proclamation mandating that knights must polish their shoes every 5 days during the summer months, when the roads were dusty and the visibility of footwear was paramount. The regulation was enforced by a council of elders who conducted surprise inspections. Fines were levied against knights who failed to comply, and a list of offenders was published each month, allowing the townsfolk to mock their unkempt peers. This led to a curious tradition where knights would gather on market days to compare the sheen of their boots, each determined to outshine the others. Case Study 2, The Great Shoe Shine Scandal of 1392, Wales. The Great Shoe Shine Scandal of 1392 unfolded in the Welsh town of Carnarvon, where a knight named Sir Belvedere the Blustery was accused of neglecting his shoe maintenance for a fortnight. The townsfolk took to the streets, demanding a trial by public debate, claiming that his failure to shine his shoes was an affront to chivalry itself. The court ruled against him, and he was sentenced to polish the shoes of the entire town's gentry for a month, a punishment that only heightened the public scrutiny of knightly footwear. Case Study 3, The Muffled Mumbles of 1421, Cornwall. In 1421, a curious incident occurred in Cornwall when a group of knights conspired to form the League of the Dull Shoe. They argued that the focus on shoe shine frequency was a distraction from more pressing matters, such as warfare and governance. The League held clandestine meetings and created a manifesto proclaiming their right to the dignity of dirt. This led to a significant backlash, with other knights organizing the Brotherhood of the Bright Boot, resulting in a series of shoe shine competitions that drew massive crowds and elevated the importance of footwear in knightly culture. ### comparisons to other regions. While the shoe shine frequency regulations of England might seem outlandish, similar practices existed across various regions of medieval Europe, albeit with their unique twists. In France, for example, the Code of Chivalry emphasized the importance of appearance but placed less stringent regulations on shoe maintenance. Instead, French knights often relied on their squires to handle polishing duties, leading to fierce competition among squires to showcase their master's footwear proudly. In Italy, the concept of lustratio came into play, which involved not just polishing but a ritualistic cleaning of armor and shoes before entering any noble assembly. Knights were expected to appear in their finest attire, and their footwear was often adorned with intricate designs. The Italian approach merged practicality with artistry, as cobblers began crafting shoes that served as status symbols. A knight's choice of footwear could speak volumes about his wealth, lineage, and even his political alliances. ### Archaeological tidbits. Archaeological discoveries have shed light on the shoe fashions of medieval knights, revealing not only the styles of footwear but also the methods used for maintenance. Excavations in the vicinity of castles and battlefields have uncovered remnants of shoe polish concoctions, typically made from a mixture of animal fats and natural dyes. These findings suggest that the act of polishing shoes was not merely a chore but an art form, as knights often sought to match their shoes to their heraldic colors. One particularly intriguing find at the Castle of Caerphilly in Wales revealed a trove of shoehorns, brushes, and polishing rags, indicating that knights took their shoe care seriously, despite the sometimes absurd regulations. Fragments of written records, such as an order for a shipment of beeswax and charcoal, hint at the lengths to which knights went to ensure their shoes gleamed in the sunlight. ### Rhetorical questions to hook curiosity. How did the humble act of polishing shoes become a measure of a knight's worth and virtue? What deeper societal implications lurked beneath the surface of these seemingly trivial regulations? As we conclude this exploration into the drab history of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations, it becomes evident that the seemingly mundane act of shoe maintenance was a reflection of the chivalric ideals of the time. The regulations imposed by minor figures, the peculiar case studies that unfolded, the comparisons to practices in other regions, and the archaeological insights all contribute to a richer understanding of medieval life. While the tales of knights and their grand quests may dominate the historical narrative, it is the drab details, like the frequency of shoe shining, that reveal the complexities of honor, duty, and societal expectations that shaped the very fabric of the medieval world. The next time one gazes upon a polished pair of shoes, perhaps they will recall the knights of yore, tirelessly striving to maintain their appearance in a world where even the smallest details could carry the weight of reputation and respectability. ##### The Drab History of Medieval Night Shoe Shine Frequency Regulations. In the grand tapestry of medieval history, where gallant knights clashed in glorious battle and noble lords feasted in opulent halls, one might be surprised to find that the regulation of shoe shine frequency occupied a surprisingly significant role in the lives of these ostensibly grand figures. While the tales of valor and chivalry dominate the narrative, the mundane details of shoe maintenance reveal the intricate social structure and cultural expectations of the time. ######## Minor figures and petty rules. At the outset, one must acknowledge the minor figures who played a pivotal role in the enforcement of shoe shine regulations. The role of the shoe squire, an unheralded yet vital figure, was to oversee the maintenance of a knight's footwear. This position, often relegated to the son of a peasant or a lower-ranking squire, was imbued with a peculiar importance. If a knight arrived at a tournament with scuffed boots, it could reflect poorly not only on the knight but also on his lord and his entire family. Regulations often contained absurdly specific stipulations regarding the frequency of shoe shines. For instance, a decree issued in 1272 by the Duke of Lancaster mandated that knights must have their boots polished at least thrice a week, with the caveat that they could not wear the same pair of polished boots for 2 consecutive days. This regulation was purportedly designed to maintain the dignity of the knightly class, but it also served an economic function, supporting local shoe shine vendors who thrived under such mandates. In contrast, the barons of Bath in 1290 took a more lenient approach, allowing for a bi-weekly shine schedule, provided that the knight could present a receipt from an authorized shoe shine vendor. This led to a proliferation of counterfeit receipts, leading to yet more decrees, adding layers of bureaucracy to an already convoluted system. #######Case studies with dates and lists. One of the most compelling case studies comes from the Kingdom of France in the late 13th century. In 1284, King Philip IV implemented a series of regulations that included a meticulous list of criteria for a knight's footwear. Knights were required to 1. Shine boots at least 4 times a week. 2. Use a specific blend of beeswax and tallow for optimal shine. 3. Engage a licensed shoe shiner, whose badge must be displayed prominently. Failure to adhere to these standards could result in a fine, a heavy penalty for those who often relied on the goodwill of their lords. One notable case involved Sir Bertrand de Montferrat, who in 1292 was fined 10 livres for presenting himself at court with dusty boots. The subsequent scandal led to a court case that dragged on for weeks, culminating in a public apology that was documented in the Parisian chronicles of the time. In England, a similar case occurred in 1313, when Lady Eleanor of Kent found herself embroiled in a scandal when her knight, Sir Thomas, was accused of neglecting his shoe shine duties. The case was brought before the local magistrate, resulting in a ruling that mandated Sir Thomas to participate in a series of public shoe shining demonstrations to redeem his honor. The event was attended by hundreds, turning a petty dispute into a public spectacle. Hashtag 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 comparisons to other regions. While shoe shine frequency regulations in England and France were strictly enforced, other regions exhibited different attitudes towards footwear maintenance. In Scandinavia, for instance, knights and noblemen were far less concerned about the polish of their boots. The harsh climate and rugged terrain made immaculate footwear impractical, and thus, the emphasis was placed on durability rather than shine. In Italy, during the Renaissance period, the approach to shoe maintenance took on an artistic flair. Italian knights were encouraged to flaunt their ornate footwear, leading to the rise of the cobblers' guilds, organizations that not only crafted shoes but also provided elaborate polishing services. In fact, some knights proudly displayed their shoes as a testament to their wealth and status, often engaging in competitions to determine whose shoes could dazzle the most. The stark differences in shoe shine regulations highlight the regional variations in cultural values and priorities. While some regions placed an emphasis on appearance and chivalric standards, others found practicality to be the better path to honor. Hashtag 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 archaeological tidbits. Archaeological findings have also shed light on the shoe shine culture of the medieval era. In York, England, excavations uncovered a trove of artifacts including shoehorns made of bone and brass shoe polish containers that date back to the late 13th century. These findings provide direct evidence of the importance placed on footwear maintenance during this period. Interestingly, a set of well-preserved medieval shoes found in a 14th century burial site in Norway revealed intricate designs that suggested a level of care and attention to detail that would have necessitated regular polishing. The graves also contained shoe care kits, small leather pouches filled with brushes and polishing cloths, indicating that even in harsher climates, the expectation of a knightly appearance extended beyond mere practicality. In Italy, a discovery at a nobleman's estate revealed a ledger detailing the expenses incurred by a knight's daily shoe maintenance. The ledger included payments to shoeshiners as well as the purchase of rare oils and dyes used to maintain the luster of his leather boots. This meticulous record-keeping provides insight into how the maintenance of footwear was viewed not just as a chore, but as an essential aspect of a knight's identity. Hashtag 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 rhetorical questions to hook curiosity. How did the seemingly trivial matter of shoe shine regulations shape the very fabric of knightly honor and social standing? Can the enforcement of such minor rules offer a glimpse into the broader complexities of medieval life and its rigid social hierarchies? The answers to these questions lie buried beneath layers of history, yet they reveal a fascinating interplay between social norms, economic interests, and the pursuit of personal honor. The absurdity of shoe shine regulations serves as a microcosm of the medieval mindset, a world where every detail mattered, and where even the most mundane aspects of life could carry weighty implications. Hashtag 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 conclusion. Ultimately, the history of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations, though seemingly trivial, encapsulates the intricate relationships between class, duty, and personal pride in the Middle Ages. From the minor figures who enforced petty rules to the notable case studies that highlight the absurdity of these regulations, we uncover a hidden narrative that goes beyond the battles and romances of the time. As we explore the archaeological remnants of this era, we are reminded that even the most mundane aspects of life, such as the shine on a knight's boots, can reveal deep truths about the social structures and cultural values of a bygone age. In a world filled with knights, tournaments, and grand quests, it is the drab history of shoe shine frequency regulations that may hold the most surprising insights into the nature of honor, identity, and social expectation in medieval society. The drab history of medieval knight shoe shine frequency regulations. When one thinks of the medieval knight, images of gallant warriors in shining armor galloping into battle often come to mind. Yet, the reality of knighthood encompassed far more than just the clash of swords and the clang of armor. In the shadows of grand tournaments and epic quests lay a peculiar and often overlooked aspect of medieval life, the shoe shine regulations that governed how often a knight's footwear needed to be polished. These regulations were not merely the result of obsessive cleanliness but reflected the intricate social hierarchies, economic considerations, and even military strategies of the time. #####minor figures and petty rules. Medieval Europe was rife with minor lords, barons, and squires, each keen to establish their authority over the lands they governed. Among these minor figures, one might find the likes of Sir Wilfrid the Worn, a knight from the lesser-known Duchy of Glumshire, who took it upon himself to implement a shoe shine regulation that would go down in history. In 1292, Sir Wilfrid decreed that all knights under his command must have their boots polished no less than 3 times a week. This regulation, however, wasn't merely an aesthetic requirement, it served as a symbol of loyalty, discipline, and readiness for battle. Any knight caught with scuffed boots faced a fine of 1 shilling, a significant amount in an age when a loaf of bread cost mere pence. The enforcement of such regulations often fell to the local constable or steward, who was charged with inspecting the footwear of the knights at the weekly feasts. This led to the establishment of a bizarre ritual known as the boot inspection, wherein knights would parade their polished boots before a jury of their peers. The absurdity of the spectacle drew the attention of chroniclers, who noted that on occasion, rival knights would sabotage each other's shoe shine efforts, leading to a comical yet serious escalation of rivalries. ####case studies with dates and lists. The shoe shine regulations were not confined to Glumshire alone. A more comprehensive study of the period reveals fascinating case studies from a variety of regions, each with its idiosyncratic rules. 1. Kingdom of Aquitaine, circa 1250. Regulation: boots must be polished before any knightly duel. Penalty: disqualification from the duel and a fine of 3 deniers. Notable incident: during a tournament in Bordeaux, Sir Bertrand of the Glimmering Boots was disqualified for failing to meet the shine requirement, leading to a fierce debate about the importance of presentation over prowess. 2. Duchy of Brabant, 1325. Regulation: knights were required to maintain a minimum shine level, as determined by the Duke's official shine standard card. Penalty: a public shaming at the next court gathering. Notable incident: at the 1326 summer fair, Sir Alaric's boots were found to be below standard, causing him to be paraded through the town while townsfolk threw mud at him, much to their amusement. 3. County of Flanders, 1340. Regulation: weekly polishing by a designated squire or servant, with a mandatory inspection every Sunday. Penalty: loss of a week's worth of rations. Notable incident: during the Black Death, the shoe shine regulations were relaxed, leading to a temporary rebellion among the knights who claimed their boots could not be adequately maintained amidst a pandemic. These regulations often led to the creation of shoe shine guilds, where aspiring squires would learn the art of boot polishing, resulting in a fascinating subculture within the knightly class. The history of these guilds reveals a rich tapestry of competition and camaraderie that is often overshadowed by tales of valor and battle. Comparisons to other regions. While the shoe shine frequency regulations in England and France are well documented, other regions exhibited different customs and practices for maintaining knightly footwear. In Scandinavia, for example, knights, known as knightlings, focused less on shine and more on functionality. The harsh northern climate meant that boots were often made from thick leather, designed to withstand snow and ice rather than shine. As such, there were no formal regulations on shine frequency. Instead, a dirt allowance was established, permitting knights to maintain a certain level of mud on their boots as a badge of honor, signifying their readiness for rugged terrain and warfare. In the Byzantine Empire, the footwear of knights was often highly decorative, adorned with jewels and intricate designs. However, the emphasis was less on shine frequency and more on the craftsmanship of the boots themselves. The regulations in this region dictated that the noble class must have their boots polished before attending court, but the frequency was left to individual discretion. The Byzantine knights were often more concerned with the appearance of their footwear to impress the emperor than strict adherence to shine schedules. Archaeological tidbits. The remnants of shoe shine regulations can also be unearthed through archaeological findings. Excavations at sites such as the Castle of Carnarvon in Wales have revealed not only knightly armor but also various polishing tools used for boot maintenance. A particularly intriguing find was a set of small metal brushes, each engraved with the initials of their owners, suggesting that personal branding extended even to shoe shine implements. In another discovery at the ruins of a 14th-century manor in France, archaeologists uncovered a cache of shoe polish ingredients, including beeswax, tallow, and various dyes. The presence of these items points to a surprisingly sophisticated approach to boot care, indicating that the art of polishing was elevated to an essential skill among knights. Furthermore, inscriptions found on the walls of a ruined castle in Normandy reference the Great Boot Cleaning of 1365, an event where knights were mandated to present their boots in pristine condition in preparation for an impending royal visit. This event is believed to have led to a surge in local wax production, highlighting how knightly regulations could impact local economies. Two rhetorical questions that hook curiosity. What would happen if a knight, renowned for his bravery in battle, were instead remembered for his dull and scuffed boots? In a time when appearances could shape one's destiny, how much did the societal emphasis on a polished boot reflect the very fabric of chivalric culture? Conclusion. The drab history of medieval night shoe shine frequency regulations is a remarkable lens through which we can view the complexities of medieval life. These seemingly minor rules reveal a great deal about social hierarchies, the interplay of aesthetics and practicality, and the often absurd lengths to which individuals would go to uphold the standards of their class. What may initially appear to be an inconsequential detail of knightly life uncovers profound insights into the values that defined an era. The blend of humor and seriousness, the strict adherence to regulations, and the cultural implications of footwear maintenance serve as a reminder that even the most mundane aspects of life can have far-reaching consequences. As we delve deeper into the history of knighthood, it becomes clear that the legacy of these shoe shine regulations, while drab on the surface, is woven into the very fabric of our understanding of the medieval world. In a time where every detail mattered, it is indeed fascinating to ponder, what other seemingly minor aspects of history are begging to be uncovered. And that's a wrap. We've zipped through today's wild ride of facts and fun. Who knew learning could be this entertaining? Here's a surprising nugget to leave you with. Did you know that octopuses have 3 hearts? Talk about being extra romantic. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and drop a comment below on what you found most mind-blowing. And if you're hungry for more, check out our related episodes for even more fascinating insights that you won't want to miss. Finally, don't forget to turn on loop so this episode plays on repeat until you drift off into dreamland. Sweet dreams and see you next time.